The room was thick with tension. Adam stood frozen, his heart racing as the Zorith officer commander Dorith stared at him. The silence between them felt heavy, suffocating. Lyra's expression was one of calm determination, but Adam could see the flicker of doubt in her eyes. It was clear that everything had just changed. Jorith's words echoed in Adam's mind. Earth was always meant to be ours. A chill ran down Adam's spine. It felt like the world had shifted beneath his feet. The threat was no longer just some abstract possibility. It was real, and it was here. The Zorith weren't waiting to invade. They had already infiltrated Earth. And now, they were moving to control it from within. Adam's instinct screamed at him to act, to do something. But what? He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero. He was just a tech expert, an ordinary person caught in the middle of an extraordinary situation. And yet standing in this room, face to face with Lyra and Jorith, Adam realized something. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about Earth. It was about humanity. "I won't let you do this," Lyra said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Earth is not yours to take. Not anymore." Jorith's face darkened. "You are a traitor, Lyra. You are turning against your own people. And for what? A species that can't even protect its own world. Earth was never meant to survive. We were merely giving it time to grow, so it would be easier to harvest." Adam could hardly believe the words coming out of Jorith's mouth. The Zorith hadn't just planned to invade, they had been toying with humanity. Letting Earth grow, letting humans build their civilizations, only to destroy them once they were strong enough to fight back. It was a calculated plan, and now, with Lyra's betrayal, it was all falling apart. But despite the weight of Jorith's words, Adam felt a surge of defiance rising in him. "No," he thought. "We won't go down without a fight. Your people are wrong," Adam said, his voice trembling with anger, but firm with resolve. "Humanity isn't just some farm you can harvest. We're stronger than you think. We've fought wars, rebuilt, and survived for centuries. Earth is ours, and we will protect it." Jorith's cold, alien eyes studied Adam for a long moment. "You misunderstand, human. It's not your world that matters. It's the resources, you hydrosources, that we need to expand our empire. Earth is a tool, nothing more." Lyra stepped forward, her voice sharp. "You're wrong, Jorith. You've underestimated humanity from the beginning. You think we're weak, but we're not. We fight when it matters, and I won't let you destroy everything I've come to love." Adam was beginning to feel the gravity of their words. It wasn't just about stopping an alien invasion anymore. It was about the future of Earth itself, the survival of humanity. And for the first time, Adam understood that he had a role to play in all of this. He wasn't just some ordinary person anymore. He had a responsibility. "We need to get this information to the world," Adam said, his voice resolute. "We can't fight the Zoroth alone, but if we expose them, if we show everyone what they're planning, we'll have a chance." Lyra nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I have a plan. We can access the central communication network and send a message to all of Earth. It will take everything we have, but we can't wait any longer." Adam turned to the Zorith officer, his fists clenched. "And what will you do, Jorith? Are you really going to let your people destroy Earth?" Jorith's face was unreadable, but there was a flicker of something doubt. Regret? It was gone before Adam could be sure. "My mission is clear," Jorith said, his voice cold again. "But you've made your choice, Lyra, and it's one I can't follow. You will regret this." Before Adam could respond, Jorith turned, his long strides carrying him quickly toward the exit. But just before leaving, he stopped, as if considering something. He looked back at Lyra. "You were once one of us, Lyra," he said quietly. "But you are not anymore. I pity you." Lyra didn't flinch, but her eyes were hard. "I am what I choose to be." Jorith didn't reply. With one last look, he walked out of the room, disappearing into the shadows. Adam let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. That was too close. Lyra turned to him, her face serious. "We don't have much time. We have to act now." Without another word, they moved quickly through the facility, heading toward the central server room. Adam's mind raced as he followed Lyra. Could they really do this? Could they expose the Zoroth's plans to the world and stop the invasion? They reached the server room, and Lyra immediately went to work, using her knowledge of alien technology to hack into the system. Adam stood watch, his heart pounding as he listened to the hum of the machines around him. Time was running out. He could feel it. They needed to move quickly. Minutes passed, and Lyra's fingers flew over the console, accessing the files, decrypting the codes. She paused for a moment, her face tense. "We have it," she said. "The Zoroth's invasion plans. Everything they've been preparing." Adam felt a rush of relief, but it was short-lived. "Now what?" "Now we send it out," Lyra replied. "To every government, every communication network on Earth, we expose them for what they are." Adam swallowed hard. "You sure? Once we do this, there's no going back." Lyra met his eyes. "We have no choice. It's the only way." With a deep breath, Adam nodded. "Do it." Lyra's fingers moved quickly, her eyes flicking back and forth across the screen. And then, with a final press of a button, she sent the message a transmission of the Zoroth's invasion plans. The truth about their manipulation, their intentions for Earth, the message would reach everyone. Governments, leaders, citizens, everyone would know what was coming. Adam felt a wave of relief wash over him. For the first time, they had done something. They had made a stand. But as the message began to send, Adam knew that this was only the beginning. The fight wasn't over yet. The Zoroth would retaliate. They would come for them. But at that moment, Adam also knew something else they would fight back. Together, humans and allies, united against a common enemy. And they wouldn't give up without a fight. As the data streamed out, Adam turned to Lyra. "We've done what we can. Now it's up to everyone else." Lyra nodded. "Now we wait. But don't think this is over. The real battle is just beginning." Captain Aravia stood tall in the center of the Zephyrion command ship, her silver armor gleaming under the bright lights. She was a proud warrior of the Zephyrion Empire, a species that had ruled over countless worlds for thousands of years. Her people were advanced, powerful, and, most importantly, they believed they were the greatest civilization in the galaxy. They had seen and conquered everything, or so they thought. For decades, Zephyrians had looked at humanity with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. Earth, the home of humans, was a small, insignificant planet located in a remote part of the galaxy. Its people were still fighting wars with primitive weapons, struggling with diseases, and fighting to reach the stars. To the Zephyrians, they were weak, helpless, and not a threat. But that's why Aravia had been given her mission. It was a diplomatic assignment, one that required her to study Earth and its people. The Zephyrian High Command had long dismissed humanity as a harmless species. They knew about their early attempts at space travel, their wars, and their struggles. The High Command believed that humanity was destined to remain small and insignificant. They had no interest in Earth beyond studying them for academic purposes. "Report," Aravia's voice echoed in the quiet command center as she addressed her officer. "Captain, we've gathered all the necessary data on Earth," the officer replied, tapping a few buttons on his console. "Humanity's technological advancements are primitive at best. Their military forces are disorganized, and their history is full of conflict." Aravia nodded, her sharp eyes scanning the data. "The humans' history was chaotic wars over resources, power struggles, and constant change. They had barely managed to send a few weak spacecraft into space, none of which had left their solar system. In comparison to the Zephyrians, whose ships could travel across galaxies, Earth's attempts seemed laughable." "Anything interesting?" she asked, still skeptical. The officer hesitated, then spoke. "Well, there is one thing, Captain. We found a series of ancient texts from Earth's past cryptic writings about a powerful object. Something called the Unbreakable Seal. It is said to hold unimaginable power, though no one knows what it actually is." Aravia's interest was piqued. "Powerful object?" "Tell me more," the officer continued. "The text suggests that the seal is a relic from a forgotten era. older than any civilization on Earth. It was sealed away centuries ago by their ancestors. The humans never fully understood what it was, but many believe it contains the ability to change the future. Aravia's lips curled into a smile. How interesting. Let me see these texts. As she read the information, a sense of doubt began to grow in her mind. The concept of the unbreakable seal seemed strange, something that even the mighty Zephyrions had never encountered. Still, she dismissed the idea quickly. There was no way the humans, with their primitive technology, could have something that the Zephyrions could not understand or control. Continue your studies, she ordered. I want to know everything about this seal, but I still believe there is no threat from Earth. The next few days were a blur for Aravia. She spent hours analyzing Earth's history, speaking with scholars who had studied the humans, and scanning any new data they received from their surveillance of the planet. Earth's culture was strange, filled with contradictions. The humans were a species of extremes. They created incredible works of art, yet they also fought senseless wars. Their technology was primitive, but it had moments of brilliance, especially in their ability to think outside the box. But despite all their cleverness, they remained far behind the Zephyrions in every measurable way. The idea of humanity challenging the Zephyrions seemed impossible to Aravia then. One evening, as she sat alone in her quarters, a new report came in from the human planet. It was a strange message from Earth, one that was unlike any she had seen before. The transmission was from an individual, not a government or an organization. It was from a man named Ethan Carter, an Earthling she had never heard of. Captain. The officer's voice was urgent. This transmission is from a human named Ethan Carter. It's highly encrypted, but it appears to be a message about the seal. Aravia's interest was piqued. She leaned forward, listening carefully as the officer decrypted the message. To the one who finds this message, the voice began, calm and deliberate. My name is Ethan Carter. If you are hearing this, then you have discovered what I've uncovered. The unbreakable seal is not just a myth. It is real, and it is the key to humanity's future. Aravia's eyes narrowed. What is he talking about? She muttered. The message continued. I have spent years researching ancient texts, forgotten knowledge, and mysterious artifacts. And I've found the key to unlocking the seal. It's more than just power, it's knowledge. It's the ability to break every boundary that has ever limited humanity's potential. The seal must not remain sealed. It must be opened. Aravia felt a chill run down her spine. Was it possible? Could this human actually know something that the Zephyrions didn't? Her thoughts were interrupted as the officer spoke again. Captain, we've located Ethan Carter. He's living in a small, secluded area on Earth, far from any major cities. He has no known connections to any governments or organizations. He's just a private individual with strange theories. Strange theories? Aravia repeated, half to herself. This could be a trap, but something about the message troubled her. No one had ever dared to question the Zephyrian superiority before. She couldn't ignore the possibility that this human, this Ethan Carter, had stumbled upon something truly dangerous. Aravia made a decision. Prepare a team. We're going to Earth. We need to meet this Ethan Carter. The journey to Earth took only a few hours in the Zephyrian ship, technological marvel that outclassed anything humans had ever dreamed of. As they approached Earth, Aravia looked down at the planet below, her mind racing with possibilities. Was it possible that this human was right? Could the unbreakable seal hold the key to something unimaginable? Aravia wasn't sure, but she was determined to find out. When they landed, the team made its way to Ethan's location, a small cabin in the wilderness far from the reach of human governments. The cabin was old, its windows covered with dust, and there was no sign of activity around it. Aravia stepped inside cautiously, her eyes scanning the room for any signs of danger. She was a seasoned warrior, but there was something about this mission that made her uneasy. Then she saw him. Ethan Carter was sitting at a small desk, scribbling notes in a tattered notebook. He was a middle-aged man with wild brown hair and eyes that seemed too sharp for someone from Earth. Are you Ethan Carter? Aravia asked, her voice firm but calm. Ethan looked up, surprised to see them. Yes, you're not from Earth, are you? We're Zephyrions, Aravia replied. And you, Mr. Carter, are the one who claims to know about the Unbreakable seal. Ethan nodded slowly, then gestured to the large map of ancient Earth on the wall behind him. I've spent my life studying it. The seal is not just a myth. It's something far greater than anyone understands. Aravia stared at him, trying to read his expression. Was he really just a simple human? Or did he know something that could change the future of the galaxy? Aravia stood at the entrance of Ethan Carter's cabin, her mind buzzing with questions. The man sitting before her, a simple human, had just claimed to understand the secrets of the so-called Unbreakable seal. Something even the mighty Zephyrians had never dared to study. His message had been clear. This object was not just a myth, and it held power beyond what anyone, even the Zephyrians, could comprehend. Ethan's cabin was cluttered with old books, maps, and strange diagrams pinned to the walls. It was a place that felt more like the lair of a mad scientist than a quiet retreat in the wilderness. But there was no mistaking the focused energy in his eyes as he spoke about the seal. "You've come all the way here because you think I'm crazy, don't you?" Ethan said with a quiet chuckle, pushing his messy hair back as he looked up at Aravia. "I wouldn't blame you. I've spent years digging through ancient texts, fragments of forgotten history, and maps that barely make sense. But I know I'm right. The Unbreakable seal is real, and if we open it, we'll unlock a power far beyond anything this galaxy has ever known." Aravia narrowed her eyes, her silver armor gleaming in the dim light of the cabin. She had seen countless threats in her time as a Zephyrian captain, but nothing like this. The idea that a human could possess the knowledge to unlock an artifact thought to be indestructible was unsettling. "You speak of the seal as if it's something that can be controlled," Aravia replied, her voice steady. "But what if you're wrong? What if this power is too dangerous to release? The Zephyrian Empire has studied countless civilizations, and none have possessed anything like what you describe." Ethan stood up, wiping his hands on his pants as he walked over to a table covered with more maps and notes. "The thing is, Aravia, you're wrong about humans. You think we're weak, that we're nothing compared to your advanced species? But what you don't understand is that our greatest strength isn't in our technology or our power, it's in our ability to learn, adapt, and survive." Aravia's gaze flickered for a moment. She hadn't expected this human to speak so confidently. There was something in his words that made her pause. She had always seen the Zephyrians as the supreme race, the ones with all the answers. But Ethan, a simple human, was challenging that belief, and that, more than anything, made her uneasy. "You've spent your entire life studying this," Aravia said, her tone softer now. "But why? Why has the seal been hidden for so long? What is its true purpose?" Ethan walked over to a large map of Earth that was pinned to the wall. It was marked with ancient symbols and scribbles, most of which Aravia couldn't decipher. "It's not just a weapon," Ethan said quietly. "It's more like a key one that can unlock the next stage of human evolution. The seal was created by ancient Earth civilizations long before the first humans even existed. It was hidden away because its creators feared what it could do. But I've discovered the key to unlocking it." Aravia stepped closer, her mind racing. If this power is so great, why have the humans kept it hidden for so long? Why hasn't anyone else been able to find it? "Because no one else understood it the way I do," Ethan replied. "The seal is connected to the very essence of human potential. But it can only be opened by a human, someone who is capable of unlocking the full depth of the power hidden within. That's why it's remained sealed for so long. The Zephyrians were never meant to find it." Aravia's heart skipped a beat. A human unlocking a power that the Zephyrians could never touch. The very thought was a challenge to everything she had ever believed. She was a warrior, and warriors were taught that their strength came from their superior technology, their might, their ancient knowledge. But here was a human one, who was not even a soldier, claiming that humanity itself held the key to an unimaginable power. Ethan reached into a drawer and pulled out a small, worn object. It was a pendant, old and slightly tarnished, but Aravia could see that it held great significance. "This pendant," Ethan said, "was passed down through generations of my family. It's the key to unlocking the seal. I've spent years deciphering its meaning, and I've finally cracked it. If we do this right, we can access the seal's power without destroying ourselves in the process." Aravia took a step back, her mind spinning. And you trust that this is the right course of action? You're sure that opening the seal won't destroy everything? Ethan hesitated for a moment, then looked at her with a seriousness that sent a chill through her. I don't know if it'll work, he admitted. But I do know this. Humanity is at a crossroads. We can either stay stuck in our primitive ways, or we can take a leap forward, break our limits, and become something more. This seal, it's our chance to evolve. There was a long silence in the room. Aravia felt torn between two sides. On one hand, she had been trained to believe that humanity was weak, that they were nothing more than a species struggling to survive. But on the other hand, she couldn't ignore the potential in Ethan's words. He believed that humanity could transcend its limitations, something the Zephyrians had always believed only their species was capable of. Finally, Aravia spoke, her voice quiet but firm. If we do this, we do it carefully. We need to understand the consequences before we move forward. If the seal is as powerful as you say, we must approach this with caution. Ethan nodded. I agree. I've spent years studying this, and I'm not going to rush into it without knowing the risks. But we need to act quickly. The longer we wait, the more chances there are for someone else to discover the seal. Aravia felt a weight on her shoulders. She had never doubted her own people's superiority until now. Ethan Carter, a human, had shown her a side of her enemies that she had never considered. Could they truly unlock this power? Could humanity break free from its limitations and surpass the Zephyrians? The answer was uncertain, but one thing was clear. This was no longer just a mission about studying a primitive species. This was about something much greater, a power that could change the course of history. The following day, Aravia and Ethan traveled together to the location where the seal was hidden. The journey was quiet, each lost in their thoughts about what might come next. As they walked through the dense forests, Aravia kept her eyes trained on their surroundings. She knew that the area they were heading to was sacred, a place where the seal had been hidden away for generations. When they arrived at the hidden temple, Aravia was amazed. The structure was ancient, made of stone and covered with intricate carvings that seemed to tell a story. Despite its age, it was in perfect condition, as though it had been preserved intentionally. There was an air of mystery about the place, a feeling that made Aravia uneasy. It was clear that this was no ordinary relic. It was something far more significant. Ethan led the way inside, his eyes scanning the walls. This is it, he said softly. This is where it all began. Aravia followed him inside, her heart pounding in her chest. The seal was just ahead, waiting for them. She couldn't help but wonder, what would happen once they unlocked it? Would humanity truly evolve as Ethan believed? Or would they unleash something they couldn't control? As they approached the altar, Aravia could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. This was the turning point, the moment that would change everything. Ethan turned to her, his face serious. Are you ready? Aravia didn't answer right away. She looked at the seal, at the ancient symbols carved into its surface, and then back at Ethan. She could see the determination in his eyes. Let's do it, she said quietly. Together. They stepped forward, ready to unlock the power of the unbreakable seal. The air in the ancient temple felt different, thick with mystery and a strange sense of power. Aravia stood just a few steps away from the unbreakable seal, her heart racing. The stone altar before her was marked with symbols she had never seen before, intricately carved and glowing faintly in the dim light. The seal, an object that had fascinated and terrified her since she first heard of it, stood like a monument of untold power. Ethan stood beside her, eyes wide, his face a mixture of excitement and trepidation. He had spent years researching this moment, and now, after all the long nights and hard work, they were finally here. This is it, Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. This is the place where everything changes. The seal, it's not just a weapon. It's something far more profound. Aravia studied him carefully. The human's confidence was unnerving, but she couldn't ignore the intensity of his belief. He truly thought that unlocking the seal would change everything. And somehow, she couldn't shake the feeling that he might be right. She had lived her whole life under the shadow of the Zephyrian superiority. But now, standing in this ancient temple. She was beginning to question everything she thought she knew. "Are you sure this is the right decision?" Aravia asked, her voice low but firm. "We don't fully understand what the seal can do. If it's as powerful as you say, we need to be ready for anything." Ethan turned to her, his face a mask of determination. "I know the risks, but humanity has always had to fight against the odds. This seal, it's our chance to move forward. If we don't open it, we'll never know what could be." Aravia took a deep breath, her mind racing with the possibilities. She had spent years learning how to calculate risks, how to prepare for the unknown. But this was different. There was no way to predict the consequences of unlocking something that had been hidden for millennia. Her fingers brushed against the cool surface of the seal, feeling the faint hum of energy beneath it. The symbols on the stone seemed to shift, as if they were alive, reacting to her touch. A faint glow grew brighter in response, and a low rumble vibrated through the floor beneath them. Ethan stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the seal. "This is it," he said again, his voice barely above a whisper. Aravia felt a chill run down her spine as the seal began to respond to their presence. The power it contained, something ancient and far beyond human or Zephyrian comprehension, seemed to be awakening. The temple trembled as if the very earth itself was reacting to the unlocking of the ancient artifact. Without saying another word, Ethan moved to the center of the altar, placing the small pendant he had shown her earlier on the stone. As soon as the pendant made contact with the seal, a bright flash of light erupted from it, blinding them both. The ground shook violently, and Aravia stumbled backward, her armor clanking as she fought to maintain her balance. The seal's surface cracked open. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed, the deep rumbling intensified, and the air around them grew thick with energy. Aravia's instincts screamed at her to stop, to pull Ethan away from the dangerous artifact, but something in her held her back. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was the moment of truth. It's the moment that would define everything. Ethan's voice reached her through the chaos. "It's working," he shouted, his eyes wild with excitement. "It's finally unlocking. This is what we've been waiting for." The seal continued to crack open, and in the center, a swirling light began to form. It was like nothing Aravia had ever seen, bright, intense, and full of strange, shifting patterns that seemed to defy logic itself. She could feel the pull of the power, like an invisible force trying to draw her in. The seal was more than just a physical object. It was a gateway to something greater, something beyond the comprehension of either Zephyrians or humans. Aravia took a step forward, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't take her eyes off the swirling light. It was as if it was calling to her, beckoning her to understand, to become a part of it. She had been trained to resist temptation, to maintain control, but this was different. This wasn't a weapon to be used. It was an invitation to something far beyond her understanding. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the temple, booming and powerful, as if coming from the very walls themselves. "The power of the ancients is now yours to wield. But remember, with power comes choice. Choose wisely, for the fate of all will depend on what you do next." The voice seemed to echo from everywhere at once, and the ground beneath them shook with the weight of its words. Aravia felt a rush of emotions: fear, awe, and a deep sense of responsibility. This was no ordinary artifact. This was something that could change the entire galaxy. The light in the center of the seal grew brighter, and Aravia felt a strange sensation wash over her. It was as if her mind was expanding, as if she could suddenly see beyond the physical world. She could feel the pulse of the universe, the energy that connected everything. For a brief moment, she understood the depth of the knowledge hidden within the seal. It was not just power, it was understanding, clarity, and insight into the very nature of existence. Ethan, his face glowing with excitement, turned to her. "Do you feel it?" he asked breathlessly. "The power, the knowledge, it's all here. It's everything we've ever dreamed of. Aravia, we can change the future. We can become something greater than we've ever imagined." Aravia's mind raced as the implications of what Ethan was saying began to sink in. Humanity, with all its flaws and imperfections, had the potential to unlock a power that the Zephyrians had never dreamed of. But with this power came a responsibility that neither she nor Ethan fully understood. Before she could respond, the light in the center of the seal flared, and a sudden burst of energy surged outward. Aravia barely had time to react as a shockwave of energy hit her, sending her crashing to the floor. Her armor absorbed most of the impact, but she still felt a sharp pain shoot through her body. She struggled to rise, her vision blurry. Through the haze, she saw Ethan, his body glowing with the same energy that had flooded the temple. He was standing taller now, his face filled with a strange, serene calm. It was as if the power of the seal was transforming him, changing him into something more than human. His eyes were glowing, and his hands crackled with energy. The voice spoke again, this time quieter, but no less powerful. The transformation is complete. Ethan Carter, you are now the first to unlock the full potential of the seal. But remember, power such as this cannot be wielded without consequences. Aravia struggled to her feet. Watching in awe and fear as Ethan seemed to absorb the power, his body radiating with newfound energy, she knew that this was only the beginning, that the true test of the seal's power had yet to come as Ethan turned toward her. His eyes now filled with an unsettling calm. Aravia could see the change in him. He was no longer the man she had met days ago. He was something different, something far beyond a mere human. I feel it. Aravia, Ethan said softly, his voice strangely distant. The seal has given me a new understanding. I know things I can't even explain. We have the power to reshape the universe, to create a future free of war and suffering. Aravia took a step back, her mind racing. She had seen what this power could do, and part of her feared what Ethan might do with it. This wasn't just about unlocking a weapon. It was about unlocking a force that could change the very fabric of reality, Ethan, Aravia said cautiously, her voice shaking with the weight of the moment. What will you do with all this power? Ethan looked at her, his gaze calm but distant. I will do what's best for humanity. For all of us. We no longer have to live in fear of the future. We control our destiny now. Aravia felt a surge of unease. Ethan's words, though filled with conviction, carried an air of certainty that frightened her. This power, this knowledge had transformed him, but at what cost? Could humanity truly handle it, or would they be overwhelmed, just as countless other civilizations had been before them? The question remained unanswered as the seal's light began to fade, leaving the temple shrouded in a heavy silence. Aravia knew that the future of humanity and the galaxy itself would never be the same again. The light from the unbreakable seal had dimmed, leaving the temple in an eerie silence. Aravia stood motionless, her mind racing as she watched Ethan Carter, now transformed, to stand tall before her. His body still glowing faintly with the power he had unlocked. The strange calm that had overtaken him was unsettling. Ethan was no longer the curious, somewhat awkward man she had met days ago. Something within him had shifted. Something far beyond what either she or he could fully comprehend. Ethan turned slowly toward Aravia, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. The glow in his eyes wasn't just from the light of the seal. It was something more, something deep, as if he could see through her, into her very soul. Aravia, he said softly, his voice distant yet clear. Do you feel it? The change in the air. The world is no longer the same. We no longer have to be prisoners of our past. Humanity would have the power to shape the future. No more suffering, no more wars. We can do anything. The confidence in his voice was like nothing Aravia had ever heard. It was as if the very universe itself had become his to command. But with that confidence came a deep concern, something she couldn't ignore. The seal had given him power, yes, but what had it taken in return? Ethan's transformation was not just physical, his mind, too, seemed to be undergoing a change. I can feel the power, Ethan, Aravia said slowly, taking a cautious step forward. But with it comes a burden. You can change things, yes, but what happens when a single person has this much power? What will happen to the rest of humanity? Ethan's expression softened, but the glow in his eyes remained. I know what you're thinking, Aravia. You're worried? And you should be. But think about it. Humanity has always been limited by its own fears and flaws. But now we can rise above them. The seal has unlocked something deep inside all of us. We can evolve. We can create a future where no one has to suffer. Aravia didn't know how to respond. Ethan was right in a way. Humanity had always struggled, always fought against itself. But now, with this newfound power, what direction would they take? She had been trained to respect strength, to follow orders from her superiors. But Ethan's power made her feel small, insignificant, as if she was watching the birth of something far beyond her understanding. The power to shape the future, Aravia murmured. But at what cost? This isn't just about ending wars or eradicating poverty. You're talking about changing the very fabric of reality itself. The seal isn't just a tool, it's an invitation to something greater, something that might be too much for anyone to control. Ethan stepped closer to her, his expression serious but calm. I've thought about that, Aravia. I know the risks. But this power doesn't belong to one person alone. It belongs to humanity. I can help guide them, help them unlock their true potential. This isn't about control. It's about freedom. Freedom from fear, from oppression, from the limitations we've placed on ourselves. Aravia's heart was heavy with doubt. She could see the sincerity in Ethan's eyes. But she also saw the shadow of something else, a dangerous confidence that bordered on arrogance. The seal had given him power, yes. But she wondered if it had also given him a false sense of invincibility. I'm not sure you understand what you're saying, Aravia said quietly. You've changed, Ethan. I can see it in your eyes. The seal is doing something to you, something I can't fully comprehend. You're no longer just human. You're something else. Ethan paused, his eyes searching hers. I know, he said softly. I can feel it too. It's like my mind is expanding. I can see things I couldn't before, understand things that were once beyond me. It's not just power, it's wisdom. The seal has given me the knowledge of ages. Aravia watched him closely, her hand instinctively resting on the hilt of her weapon. She wasn't sure if she was ready to face whatever Ethan had become. She had seen many powerful beings in her time, but this was different. This was a human, someone she had once thought of as weak, who had been transformed into something beyond even the Zephyrians' understanding. Ethan, she said, her voice filled with caution. You don't know what this power will do to you. You're not the same person you were. You've different, and I'm afraid that change may not be for the better. Ethan's expression hardened for a moment, and Aravia saw the flicker of something dangerous behind his calm exterior. For a brief instant, she wondered if she had made a mistake. Trusting him was a fatal error. But then, as quickly as the intensity appeared, it vanished. Ethan's face softened again, and he reached out. Touching her arm gently, I understand your fear, Aravia, he said quietly, but you're wrong to doubt me. The seal hasn't changed me, it's shown me who I really am, who we all can be. This power, it's not about domination. It's about evolution. We don't need to fear it. Aravia was silent for a long time, her mind swirling with questions and doubts. Ethan was right about one thing: humans had always been limited by their own fears. But what if this power was too much for them to control? What if Ethan, despite his good intentions, led humanity down a path they couldn't return from? Do you really believe that, Ethan? Aravia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Do you really think that humanity can handle this? Can you handle it? Ethan's gaze was unwavering. I do believe it. The seal has unlocked something that humanity has always been capable of. We've always had the potential for greatness, but we've been held back by our own limitations. Now we can break free. We can become more than we ever dreamed. Aravia felt a deep pit open in her stomach. Ethan's confidence was unwavering, but she could sense the growing danger within him. The seal had granted him wisdom and power beyond anything she had ever imagined. But it was also changing him, shaping him into someone who might not understand the consequences of his actions. And that was the most frightening part of all. As they stood in the temple, the air heavy with the power of the seal, Aravia made a silent vow to herself. She would not let this power consume them. She would keep a watchful eye on Ethan, on humanity's future. She had seen the price of unchecked power too many times, and she wasn't going to let it happen again. Ethan, Aravia said firmly, her voice filled with resolve. I'll follow you, but I won't let you go down a path you can't return from. You need to understand the weight of this power. It's not just about what you can do, it's about the consequences of what you choose. Ethan looked at her, his eyes still glowing with the power of the seal, but there was a flicker of something like doubt beneath the surface. For the first time since unlocking the seal, Ravia saw a hint of the man he used to be. I understand, Ravia, he said quietly. I won't forget what you've said, but we have to move forward. Humanity's future is waiting, and I won't let fear hold us back. With those words, the energy in the temple shifted. Aravia knew that the path ahead was uncertain, but she also knew one thing for sure. Ethan Carter had become something more than human, and that could either save humanity or doom it.